thank you all very much for coming today, and thanks to the Gript media for making this event possible. And I'm just very, very happy to be here to add my tuppence to the situation that the country has found itself in at the moment. You know, when they spoke about this originally, I thought a lot about the idea of hate speech. And I tried to remember, where did I hear hate speech and where do I hear hate speech? And I was cast back 40, 50 years ago to our kitchen in Cunlin Road in Killybegs, where my 5 sisters, most of them smokers, used to sit around tearing strips off each other. You're a fat cow. You're a miserable old bitch. And that kind of hate speech I haven't heard for years. And my beautiful sister Aileen, she was there, she was the queen of it all. But, you know, when you look at hate speech and the idea of being hateful in what you say and what you think, really at the heart of it is decency. And most people in Ireland, and I think that, you know, I watched over the years as words have been weaponized to make people into what they're not. You know, I grew up in Donegal, and I have had an incredible life in Ireland. And it breaks my heart when I see political figures, especially political figures who are black, like Leo Varadkar, who's had the most incredible experience here in Ireland. He was a successful doctor, he was a successful politician, and now he stands there and calls the Irish people racist because they're concerned about their communities, because they're concerned about what their children have been taught in school. And you know what? Let me tell you this from a black man's perspective. Ireland has never been a racist country. The people of Ireland have never been racist. You know, you only need to look back at the campaigns. I mean, when I was a kid, my friends used to joke that my mother had collected all the labels on the Robinson's Gollywog jam, and that's how they got me. That's not racism, that's humor. And when you have good, decent people who care, it is easy to manipulate them into believing that their motives are somehow dark and that they're not genuinely good people who are welcoming, kind, and compassionate. And now we're in a situation where those very characteristics are being weaponized against people. And if you don't agree with the government policy, you're the racist, you're xenophobic, you're homophobic. And the truth is, being a concerned adult, that's all we need to look at. There are 2 kinds of people in this world. There are people who are decent and there are people who are not. And it doesn't matter if they're black, if they're white, if they're gay or they're straight. You know when you get up in the morning what kind of person you are, and you know when you put your head on the pillow in the evening what kind of person you are. And I think at this stage, I have to be honest with you and say, I looked far and wide for this hatred. I didn't see it on the radio. I didn't hear it on the radio, I didn't see it in the magazines, and I certainly didn't see it on television. But when I really found it, would you believe it, it was coming from one woman. And if this hate speech is brought into law, Gemma O'Doherty can take the credit for it. Because she's created such an environment that she has weaponized people's fears to the point that nobody is good enough to be Irish. Gemma O'Doherty says you cannot be Irish if you're black. Excuse me? Try telling that to Phil Lynott. Tell that to Paul McGrath. Tell that to me and tell it to my face. You know, the other thing that gets me so much about the situation that we find ourselves in at the moment is the idea that the government has the right to tell you how to behave and how to think and what to say. All of us in this room know that your grandmothers and your grandfathers in this country, they lived on nothing, believing that they were handing you down something of value. This country is your legacy. This is why they worked themselves into the grave, so that you would have something for your future and for your children's future. And we've had to stand on the sidelines and watch orders being taken from Brussels to tell us how many immigrants, refugees, whatever you want to call them, that Ireland has to take. And if you disagree with it, you're a racist. Well, that's bollocks. That's bollocks. You know, most of the people here today have the ability to tell. You know, if you look at rational people, they will have some beliefs that are to the left, some beliefs that are to the right, and some beliefs that are in the center. The idea that you can be all left, all right, or all center, that doesn't sound so sane to me. And I think the fact that people can be lassoed and told that their thinking is incorrect, that is not in line with what the government wants you to think, that's a very, very dangerous territory that we've entered. You know, my mother and your mothers and if you had a mother, and most of us had, we were taught manners. We were taught how to treat people with dignity and respect and kindness. And the very idea that a group of politicians who will be here and gone in 4 years have the right to tell us how to behave is scary. It really is scary, because where does this end? You know, hate speech laws, where will they apply? You know, the couple that are having a row down the pub and she said, "You're only a lazy fat old bollocks." Oh, I'm going to the guards. Children who are pissed off with their parents. Oh, I'm going to the, like, this is like watching, you know, in the cartoons when they light a fuse to a bomb and you see it going. And the boom is when you lose your freedom to think. We are all entitled to come to our own conclusions. I meet people sometimes who tell me, you don't think right for a black person. What? What's the colour of my skin got to do with anything? By the way, I had 37 medals for Irish dancing by the time I was 11. You know, so for me, my Irish was a choice. The culture that I grew up in was the thing that made me me. And I experienced in Donegal, I mean, you've got to remember, I was the only black child in the entire county of Donegal. I never saw a black person until I was 13, but I'll tell you what, I saw kindness, acceptance, tolerance, and the most beautiful spirit in Irish people who welcomed me. They didn't judge me, they included me. They made me feel part of Ireland, and I will be forever grateful for that. And that's when I get upset when I see people who tell you your thinking is wrong, your ideas are wrong. Please, all of you, this must be resisted. Now, I personally don't have a lot of faith in the democratic process. I see these guys in suits strutting around like nothing's ever going to take them out of office, and I think maybe they might know that somehow, because I don't trust them. And when I look at the Dáil and I see that there's a bar, there's a pub in the government building. Think about that for a minute. Would you use a dry cleaner that had a pub in the back? No, you wouldn't. You'd say, I'm going to another dry cleaner. And I'm afraid they're laughing at us. They're laughing at us because they're so secure in their grip on power that they think they can treat us however they want. But I can see by the turnout here today, that's not going to be the case. And I'm very, very proud of everybody who's come today just to make your presence felt and to let people know that this is Ireland. This is your country. This doesn't belong to Brussels, and we now have a situation where the quotas for refugees, we're being told, Leo Varadkar said, we can't put a limit on it. Whoa, you can't put a limit on it, it's not your country. That's like buying a house. They give you the keys at the weekend and say, there's your house, enjoy your home. By the way, you've got to leave all the windows and doors open over the weekend. What kind of house is this? It's a European house. It's not yours. And one of the things I did want to mention was that if I was sitting in a mud hut in Africa somewhere with 2 beans in a pot and no money, and someone told me, you hear about Ireland? You can go to Ireland, you can have a better life. We'll give you a job, we'll give you a medical card, we'll even give you a house. There'd be skid marks on my driveway to get to Dublin. But I'll tell you this, if the companies that have been bleeding Africa dry for so many years would just stop stealing everything from them, there'd be no need for anyone to leave Africa. And I said this before. You know, I've said this before, and it comes from my heart. It has nothing to do with colour. But Africa into Ireland won't go. We're a small country. We're struggling as we are. And when you say that, when you tell people of your concerns, they shut you down. And that has to stop, because every single person in this country is entitled to their opinion. They're entitled to speak their mind, and they're entitled to make mistakes. They're entitled to say stupid things. We're human beings. That's what we do. But at the essence of it all is the decency of people. If you're a decent person, I'm on board with you. And if you have other ideas about stealing, robbing, manipulating and thieving from people, then I'm not. And I think at the end of the day, when you look at the country and you look at the situation we're in, this is where it's drifted, and I don't believe any political party is going to bring a difference to this. This has to be the people speaking up and saying, I don't care what party you belong to, this is Ireland, this is our country, and this is how we want to be seen in the world, this is how we want to do business in the world. So the unelected officials who take no responsibility, even some of the newspaper editors who foister us with these characters, say, this is a sound man, he's a great man. 6 months later, the guy is shamed and disgraced. Oh, nothing to do with us. So really, you know, we really need to pay attention to what we're being told to believe. And on that note, I'll leave it, and thank you all very much.